Part 1 in this series of videos exposed my landlord Bob Ors as a German masquerader murderer and why he was able to deceive me for 14 long years. Parts 2, 3, 4 and 5 videos provided proof of his sadistic, vile nature from complaints via email that document my dealings with him and how he has made attempts on my life. This Part 6 video summarizes what all he has done and describes another event to explain what he deserves as punishment. Hello friends, this is Unmasked Truth with Harmanjit Saini, where I provide unique analysis of world events based on the unmasked truth that after surrender, Germany continued World War II clandestinely and became a killing machine. I also provide true news that you will find nowhere else. In part 1 video, I explained how I came into contact with Bob Ors and his in-laws when I moved to Tampa, Florida from Milwaukee, Wisconsin in the United States, as we were all members of the same church and attended weekly church services together. I also explained how I became a tenant in one of apartment complexes owned by Bob Ors. Then I explained why I did not want to expose him as a German masquerader and a murderer to avoid being troubled more by him in retaliation. But my sources urged me to expose him. Then I explained why I was deceived for nearly 21 years about his true sadistic, murderous nature. The reason is that he appeared to be a very devout Christian as a member of my church. When I experienced trouble as his tenant, I did not attribute it to him, but to German masquerader national leaders who I thought were forcing my neighbors and others with threats to trouble me, and could not think Bob Ors as a Christian could do such things. In parts 2, 3, 4 and 5 videos, I chronologically described the experiences I've had as Bob Ors' tenant for 14 years, with document proof from the emails I sent to complain about the harassment. This Part 6 video, based on another incident, will describe what punishment he deserves. In my many videos and already well known to the victims, the world is getting to understand the vast global criminal enterprise the Germans have been operating since the end of World War II, which began only 2 years after Germany's unconditional surrender to the Allies. It began when the German masquerader US President Harry Truman and the German masquerader Prime Minister of the United Kingdom Clement Attlee made a decision to tell the German government to denazify Germany themselves. In a very short time, except for the few top leaders who were tried and executed or imprisoned for war crimes, or escaped to Central America, all the other Nazis were back in power. They found German masqueraders, people of German ancestry living in white countries, all over the world willing to join their scheme of taking over the world. German masqueraders shared all the nuclear weapons and rocket technology secrets with the Nazis, who then collaborated with China and successfully developed their own weapons by 1960. Now they no longer feared being annihilated in a nuclear war with the United States or the Soviet Union. In the very early 1960s, they developed the technology to deliver threats electronically in people's ears. They now had all the tools necessary to force people to do whatever they wanted them to do. To make their threats credible, they assassinated President Kennedy of the United States. Then, to make their threats credible for entertainers and sports figures, they assassinated Marilyn Monroe and Elvis Presley. Their next step was to identify and recruit as many German masqueraders as they could to their side. This was the process. In a social gathering or in one-on-one conversations, a masquerader would start discussing his German ancestry. Others would then discuss their ancestry. Those who indicated they were of German ancestry and were enthusiastic about it would then be taken into confidence for discussion of their beliefs, such as Germans having the divine spark in them and their beliefs about the rest of humanity. The discussion would then progress into the conspiracy to take over the country by killing all whites of non-German ancestry. Those who identified themselves as German masqueraders were then required to demonstrate their ancestry and commitment to the cause by murdering a white adult and or child of non-German ancestry. Their next step was to take control of as much of the US economy as possible. Charlie Munger was the overall boss heading the whole German masquerader effort. He recruited Warren Buffett to the cause to control the US economy in the very early 1970s. The purpose was to reward all those who would commit to their cause by murdering a white adult and or child of non-German ancestry. That's also when murders in large numbers began. Bob Ors identified himself as a German masquerader and murdered a white adult and child or children of non-German ancestry by cremating them alive in an electric crematorium to make his commitment to the masquerader cause of taking over the country by killing all whites of non-German ancestry and their allies. Masqueraders remained undiscovered for 40 full years from 1960 to 2000 to 2001 when the full extent of their atrocities were discovered. Thus, Bob Ors joined the vast criminal enterprise operating in the United States and all over the world. Now see how the vast criminal enterprise operated in microcosm in the rental properties owned by Bob Ors. Bob Ors has been given all the help in acquiring properties, but the properties have to be operated at a profit which depends on high occupancy rates. That is assured by ordering all those allied with German masqueraders, such as African immigrants who murdered a white adult and or child in their own country and were rewarded by getting immigration to the United States and then jobs. They were ordered to rent in Bob's properties. Then all the contractors and subcontractors providing construction or maintenance services such as lawn mowing, pest control, repairs and maintenance are all masqueraders or their allies. All the site managers for Bob's properties are masquerader murderers or their allies, such as African Americans. And then, like Elaine Wade and Sandra Ashley in my apartment complex, though Elaine Wade was a white woman, who have made a commitment to the masquerader side by murdering a white adult and or child of non-German ancestry. They get free accommodation and a salary, probably based on the extent to which they are to be rewarded. Then others who are to be rewarded are given the task of picking up trash, such as Pete and the one before him, and now after the one after his death, or blowing off leaves, etc., and probably get accommodation or other benefits based on the rewards they are to be given. Of course, if a potential victim rents from Bob, such as me, all these people, site managers and others such as small trash pickers, tenants, are required to do their work as ordered in either troubling the person, such as making noise or taking air out of her tires to inflict as much pain and suffering on him and make attempts on his or her life. For example, I jog outside twice a week. At least 3 people take out their guns to try and shoot me dead. Same used to happen when I took a walk daily in the apartment complex, which I had to discontinue. My guess is that at least 10 attempts are made on my life this way every week. All these people are fully committed to the masquerader side. I have made my views very clear that all masqueraders and their allies are to be exterminated, man, woman, young unmarried woman, and child. My guess is that perhaps 50 to 60% of the tenants fall into that category. That's why they all want me dead and will continue to make attempts on my life. In my other videos in this series, I provided evidence from my email complaints about what Bob Ors and his staff or tenants have done to me. Here is a listing and summary of all that I've suffered. First, there have been 6 tenants in the Unit 5009 next to mine, which is Unit 5011, and mine is a corner unit, with which we share a common wall. Each and every tenant has troubled me by banging on the common wall between us or on the wooden fence around my apartment to prevent me from having sound sleep for almost all the 14 years I've been a tenant. even when I was working full time. Secondly, I've been discriminated against by having to pay about 15% higher rent than other tenants with a similar size apartment. In addition, for many months, I have paid more than twice the water bill than a family, even though I am single and probably consume much less water. 3. I've been subjected to harassment in the following ways. For about 8 to 10 months in 2009-2010, air was being taken out of my tires, first every 5 days, then twice a week, and then every other day when I started renting. An attempt was made again in July 2023, but was probably stopped after my complaint because our side threatened the culprit of Bob Orrs himself. Then they have kids play around my car deliberately, such as throwing a football or skating fast or zipping around in scooters or playing hide and seek to either damage my car or my DirecTV dish, which would have cost more than $100 to repair. Purpose was to keep me in detention as much as possible. This was done repeatedly despite complaints to both site managers. Then there is no rat problem in the apartment complex, but a rat was introduced in my apartment to chew on the grain and cereals I keep in my apartment for my needs for about a year. The rat created a mess and kept me in detention for nearly a month. Then there is no snake problem around the apartment complex, but a black snake was introduced which made its home under my patio deck. I endured that tension for 2 to 3 months. Then I generally keep about 4 to 5 weeks supply of drinking water in my apartment. About 8 to 10 times in 14 years I've noticed that some of the gallon containers have leaked. It's possible some would have leaked on their own, but I believe at least a few times they were deliberately punctured to create a mess. Then for some time in my call center job I was working from home. At that time a roofing contractor was hired to replace all the roofs in all the apartments because many were leaking. A couple of times the contractor started working on my roof without notifying me as I had requested and harassed me. If a notice had been given, I would have arranged to work from the office on those days. Then some tenants threw trash such as plastic bags containing something for some years which could have been contaminated with some harmful bacteria such as the HIV virus or some poison. Moreover, the persons hired to pick up the trash around my apartment never did so. Then I have many packages delivered. Suddenly my packages from a company that had delivered 35 to 40 packages to my apartment started delivering them to another apartment. There definitely must have been some collusion between the site manager and the delivery company to harass me. Then for more than 14 years I endured the most uncomfortable toilet seat that anyone could design. This was deliberately done to make my life as miserable as possible. When I discovered Bob Orrs was a German masquerader and a murderer, I decided to no longer take the suffering and asked that the toilet seat be replaced. Stephen Orrs then tried to intimidate me and gave me a notice of violation of rental agreement by falsely accusing me of disrespecting his staff. Then number 4, Bob himself, his site managers and other tenants have made numerous attempts on my life. Here are some incidents. First, I believe Bob has come to my apartment personally for repairs and has tried to murder me with the tools he had with him. But as God has protected me perhaps thousands of times, he protected me from Bob Orrs' attempts also. Then I had a car accident in 2011. Bob Orrs offered to help me get my car repaired by his mechanic. The mechanic broke my dashboard and used resin to glue it together. Because the car was driving fine, I used that car for a few months. But this was Bob's attempts to damage my car so that it would fall apart on the road. I believe God protected me till I replaced that car in a few months' time. Then when I worked on my job from home, the roofing contractor who started banging on my roof without notice prompting me to come out and ask him to stop. He came with a 4 by 4 wooden plank to attack me, but was unable to do so. This incident was orchestrated by Bob Ores and was an attempt to murder me. I believe God protected me in this incident as well. Then site manager Elaine Wade's granddaughter, who lived in the adjoining apartment with her mom, made an attempt on my life by driving her car straight into mine as I was turning into the parking lot after work. Then a snake was introduced near my apartment and my window screen door was deliberately loosened for the snake to enter my apartment. The snake was likely a poisonous one. Then Bob Ores lied to me that code enforcement had told him that he could not have a tool shed in an apartment adjoining other apartments. So he constructed one 10 yards away from my apartment, which is not secured on a solid foundation, and the debris from that tool room would fly into my apartment in a hurricane. Bob still has the old tool shed in the apartment, which proves he lied to me. This is clearly an attempt to have me killed in a hurricane. The problem still exists. Then, when a hurricane was approaching, the maintenance man, David Fike, Bob Ores' nephew, deliberately left wood planks near the tool shed about 8 to 10 yards from my apartment so that they would be airborne and become missiles in the hurricane and strike my apartment. I had to complain before they were removed. Then next, Bob changed his pest control person, who told me that he had applied poison once. I am certain that poisons have been applied to my apartment a few times over the past 14 years in an attempt to kill me. Only once in 15 years has Bob given a box of cookies as a gift to tenants. I believe the box of cookies given to me was poisoned. Then someone, I believe Pete, was given access to my apartment and he put an open 2-pound package of beef in my apartment, hidden behind some milk crates. When I discovered it, it was infested with maggots with 200 to 300 eggs. I believe at that time Pete also put poison in my food. That's why he was put to death very soon after. And I suspect site managers Elaine Wade and Sandra Ashley, many times in her case, have explosive put on their bodies and come near me by knocking on my apartment to blow me up. When I am walking around sometimes, Sandra Ashley tries to walk near me, forcing me to move away to avoid her. When I have walked or jogged by her apartment, some cars or coolers have been left there which I believe are full of explosives. Some residents have also put explosives in their cars, then parked them next to mine to blow up my car when I was going to work. I am certain Sandra Ashley and many other tenants try to shoot me dead when I am walking by or jogging by. Then number 5. One great stress a person can face is financial stress. Bob Ores has my earnings statements and knows that I just manage to pay my bills. To cause me as much stress as possible, he and his site managers have tried the following ways to cause me to incur higher expenses. 1. I've already mentioned that I pay about 15% higher rent than other tenants in similar size apartment. My water bill has been more than double than other residents. Then I've already mentioned about air being taken out of my tires. The purpose was to force me to spend $2 to $3 every week to inflate my tires. However, I solved the problem by getting a tire inflator gadget from Walmart. Then I mentioned the site manager's granddaughter driving her car into mine. This has raised my insurance rates. For a 6-month period, I paid $1,377 and my next bill was around $1,580, which forced me to switch insurance companies. I am retired and drive only 3,000 to 4,000 miles per year. The accident has caused to put me through greater financial stress. Kids playing around my car is another way being used to add to my stress. The site manager, Sandra Ashley, has her own ways to cause financial stress. She keeps tearing my screen mesh door cover to keep mosquitoes and other insects out of the apartment. Her plan was to force me to replace it 2 to 3 times each summer at the cost of $10 to $15. I've had to use duct tape instead. Moreover, insects still come in through the tears she has made. Then I have faced constant harassment from maintenance, particularly when Bob Oates' nephew David Fike was doing it for 3 to 4 years. Some of the problems include David Fike delighted in messing up my toilet so that for 3 days I had to use a bucket to flush it, or the toilet would keep flushing automatically at odd hours, even at night, disturbing my sleep. When he replaced the stove burners, generally he replaced them with faulty ones. I believe he deliberately messed up the boiler or delayed coming in for repairs so that 3 4 days I had to have a cold water shower in winter. Especially when I went out of town on a religious festival, which Bob Oates also keeps, and they know I would be gone. David Fike stopped the air conditioning so that when I returned, the temperature in the apartment was 89 to 90 degrees. Now, a great deal of tension has been created through blatant invasions of privacy. Here are the incidents. Introducing a rat in my apartment was an invasion of privacy. Sometimes my toilet or shower or burners were messed up when I had noticed no problem. I believe the maintenance man David Fike was entering my apartment without permission. Number C. Someone entered my apartment and put a 2-pound package of beef full of maggots. I believe poison was also been placed in my food. Once I found a notebook and a light jacket missing. I searched for them many hours. Then some time later they mysteriously appeared and were put on my sofa in plain sight. These are some of the ways Bob Oates has made me suffer for the 14 years that I have been his tenant, which have been documented with complaints via emails and discussed in the other videos. Now I would like to discuss an event that took place over the past couple of years that describes what kind of a sadist Bob Oates is. He was also signaling to me about how he is going to treat me. His purpose probably was to stop me from voicing my view that all German masqueraders and their allies in the United States and British Commonwealth nations should be exterminated, man, woman, young unmarried woman, and child. I usually took my morning walks on the grassy area in the apartment complex, which I no longer do as I have learned about other tenants trying to shoot me dead. About 2 years ago, I noticed a coati, it's a small animal, caught in a small trap just behind one of the tool sheds. Nobody else would have seen that animal unless they walked behind the tool shed. But I almost daily walked in that area to avoid walking on gravel to avoid the head hurting. That animal was left in their small trap for a full day in which the animals could not fully stand and had to lie down curled. It must have been torture for the animal. I didn't think much of it because I thought the trap would be taken and the animal delivered to animal control. Off and on, I kept noticing the same type of animal caught in the trap. I thought nothing of it until I thought they are trying to control wild animals. Then one time I noticed the animal was left in the trap for more than 2 days. That definitely was animal cruelty. So I went and talked to the site manager, Sandra Ashley, and informed her that the animal had been caught in the trap and had been there for more than 2 days. She said she will inform Stephen or Bob's son as they take care of such issues. I noticed the same thing occurring again, and the trap in the same location where other tenants would not see the animal but would not miss it as I took daily walks there. Then I began to realize that Bob and German masqueraders were sending me a message, and the message was that I could expect to be treated that way once they win the Civil War in the United States because of all that I've spoken against Germans and German masqueraders all over the world. That indicated their cruelty to me and how they are likely to treat some of the USA population as animals. I've also known that before the German masqueraders and their atrocities were fully delivered around 2000 to 2001, they had treated some white children that way. But they were already demonstrated demonst- but they've already demonstrated that they are capable of such cruelty and are indicating what they will do. Then, about 4 weeks ago, another coal was caught in the trap in an area where some of the residents could also see the animal. After more than 2 days of the animal being caught in the trap, I spoke to Sal, the maintenance man, and informed him about the animal in the trap, and it had been caught for more than 2 days and was really cruel as the animal was gnawing at the wires and then falling asleep when exhausted. The animal could not stretch or fully stand but lie only in a curled position. Sal also told me that he and Sandra do not take care of these things and that only Stephen does. The animal was removed probably after 3 days. The message to me was unmistakable. Bob Owes and the masqueraders have decided how they are going to treat me when the coming Civil War scores are settled. They have said their message to me over and over again. The animals were caught in the trap. They were put in the trap and placed. The animals were not caught in the trap. They were put in the trap and placed where I was certain to see and likely not anyone else. So this is the reason I have been preaching to our non-masquerader side and all the nations of the world. Unless we give the Germans and their allies who have learnt their methods from them and practiced them, the same medicine they have applied, used against us, or intend to use against us, there will be no incentive for them to give up their wickedness and cruelty. But when they know that they are guaranteed to receive the same cruelty that they have dished out to other people, they will think twice before indulging in it. Now, Bob Owes is a vicious killer who has cremated a white adult and a child or children alive in an electric crematorium and has become rich by being rewarded by German masqueraders and for their crime. But I have spoken out against German masqueraders. He is plotting to lock me up in a cage where I will be able to lie only on the curled position. If they win the Civil War, they are certain to carry out what they plan. We should want him to unnotice that if we win the Civil War and can capture him, he and those among the top masquerader leadership in the United States who plotted this will be treated in exactly the same way. And then, when he is emaciated, a grandchild will be cremated alive in front of him so that he experiences the same anguish that his victims experienced, and then he will be cremated alive. That is the only appropriate punishment for him. Not only Bob Owes, but our goal will be subject to German masqueraders and their allies to the same punishment that they have inflicted on us. Unless Germans and German masqueraders are put on notice that we will not attempt any new punishment for them, but will leave nothing out of that they have noticed on our or other people. They think twice before inflicting any cruelty on others. God demands that we do this to them through Obadiah the prophet in Obadiah 1 verse 15. For the day of the Lord is near upon all the heathen. As you have done, it shall be done unto you. Your reward shall return upon your own head. Surely the Germans are the worst of the heathen, and this judgment from God applies to them more than anything else. That's the only way they will be deterred from practicing cruelty. I would like to tell the German masqueraders and Bob Owes know that I'm not convinced about their threats or their carrying them out over the past 62 years, because God has helped me deal with them very effectively. But I am putting Bob O's and German masqueraders on notice on how we intend to deal with them. They better start thinking and worrying about it seriously. I know Satan has told Frank-Walter Steinmeier, the German president, that the Germans will treat us exactly the way we treat them. But let me remind him and all German masqueraders that prophecy in Obadiah 1 verse 15 applies to the end of the Great Tribulation. The way they treat us during the Great Tribulation, they will be treated in exactly the same way. Moreover, God tells us that according to the way Israelites are treated during the Great Tribulation, God's two witnesses, Revelation 11, will pour out plagues on them to deter them from practicing cruelty. Thus, we will be the last to put them through the same punishment that they inflict on us. We will be subject to the Romans who have orchestrated all the atrocities, and German masqueraders who've already inflicted them on us through the same atrocities. I've taken notice of Bob Orr's warning to me. He should take notice on my warning to him also. Moreover, Bill has to answer for all the discrimination and other problems I have suffered over the past 14 years. I hope some enterprising law firm will take notice and will be willing to represent me in a potential lawsuit against Bob Orr's. Thank you very much for watching this video. Please continue to watch my videos and read my articles on important world events, World War III watch, politics, international business, how Bible prophecy is fulfilling an important role in world affairs, advice on health and medical problems, and much more for in-depth and insightful analysis. Please also subscribe to my YouTube and Facebook channels Unmasked Truth with Harmanjit Saini to view and get information on the latest videos.